What if I told you that the worst thing that ever happened to you was never designed to destroy you, was never meant to define you, but to design you? I was 17 years old. It was August 3rd, 2009, and probably one of the best summers of my life. I had literally just transformed my life from being this juvenile delinquent at 12 years old to becoming a student leader, president, Ontario scholar, and valedictorian in my class. I was riding high. And in the blink of an eye, something I couldn't have expected, something I didn't even think could have possibly happened to me. I had a knife that sliced me in my elbow and stabbed me in my back. I remember looking up into the sky, asking, why me? What did I do to deserve this? I barely escaped with my life that night, but when I did, the first thought that came to my mind was, who was I gonna call? Not for help, not for an ambulance, but for retaliation, of course. Where I grew up, the way I came up, that's what you did. That's what survival looked like. I mean, hurt people, right? And that's how I learned to cope. That's how I learned to survive my situation. So I stand here before you today, not despite what happened to me, but because of it. The idea I want to share with you is this. Adversity does not discriminate. Adversity doesn't care if you are a rich person, if you are a poor person, if you are kind, if you're evil. Adversity will find all of us. And because adversity is inevitable, the reality is the problems that we experience don't simply have to stay problems. If we're willing to shift our perspective, what we will realize is that life's messes are the messages to create our greatest successes. But here's the problem. Nobody teaches us that. We live in a world that teaches us how to survive our pain, but not to learn from it. We push through it, we bury it, we run from it, we do anything we can aside from sitting inside of it. We are often handed coping mechanisms, not compasses. We've become so fluent in suffering, but almost completely illiterate when it comes to meaning. And so when life hits us, and it will eventually hit all of us. Anybody here ever been hit by life before? Most of us do one of two things. We either get stuck into the cycle of the mess, or we run so far away from it that we forget and miss the message it's trying to teach us. Think about what that costs us. When we aren't able to extract meaning from life's messes, it doesn't just disappear. That trauma doesn't just vanish. It travels. It travels into our most intimate relationships, to our children, our loved ones, our spouses. And what our loved ones see is that this idea of surviving with your pain and your wounds hidden is just what life is all about. I almost became that story. The people who I called that night to come and help me retaliate, my boys, my people, they would have showed up ready, willing, able to do whatever it took. In fact, we even had a plan. But in the days that came, I started thinking to myself, how could I harm or take another mother's child away from her, knowing that mine almost lost me? I realized we were the same. My attackers, my friends, even me. We were all the same. We all use violence as a way to deal with our problems. And that realization hit me like an epiphany, like wisdom that came running like a Mack truck going 100 kilometers an hour. And it wasn't about the stabbing. It was really the realization that even in my deepest, darkest situation, I still had a choice. And even in your deepest, darkest situations, you still have a choice. The reality is we often do. So I stopped asking myself, why did this happen to me? Or why me? And I started asking, how can this situation shape me? I just want to be really real with you guys for a moment though. Like, I'm not trying to promote this toxic positivity about, kumbaya, pretending like what happened to me wasn't real, or that it didn't really hurt, or that I didn't experience the pain, or that you just smile and move on. That's not what I'm trying to promote. Perspective is not denial. Perspective is the decision to excavate meaning from a mess that was never designed to bury you in the first place. That choice almost sent me to prison. It almost sent me to the grave. Instead, it actually sent me on a mission. And I started taking the rage, the anger, the pain, all of what I experienced, and I asked myself, what do I do with this? And the answer that came back was, build something and find anyone who's ever experienced what I felt in that moment, in my lowest moment of life, and build something that they could use to heal. Create a space for them to really express themselves in a positive way. When I was younger, my friends always came to me with their challenges. Like, I was like the neighborhood kid therapist. I don't know, they all trusted me with their challenges. I don't know what it was, but I was like a safe space for people. And I built this organization rooted in the idea of creating safe and inclusive spaces for young people to express themselves in a positive way, with the idea that they could transform their pain to power using music, poetry, lyricism. And in that moment, we discovered something. Well, I actually really discovered something, and that it was a 3-step process for me. Number 1, rename it. We gotta stop calling it mistakes, tragedy, hardships, failure. Call it chapter 1. Call it a draft. Call it pain to power. Call it alchemy. Number 2, reframe it. Ask yourself, what did this teach me that nothing else could have? What did I learn in the deepest, darkest moment of my life that nothing else could teach me? Number 3, reclaim it. Take everything it made you, the anger, the strength, the resilience, the hunger, and pour it into something that's going to outlast your wound. Create a legacy out of it. Your mess is your message. Your wound is your wisdom. Your story is your sanctuary. The organization has now reached hundreds of thousands of young people. It has put millions of dollars into the pockets of young people who are using their art to make the world a better place and helping other people heal. We've run numerous awards, and not because we were the most resourced, mainly because our message was very clear. You are not what happened to you. I became a pillar in my community. I was appointed Ontario's first poet laureate. I got inducted into the Scarborough Walk of Fame. My high school, they named their library after me. I even got to open up for President Barack Obama, y'all. That was amazing. That was incredible. When one person shifts their perspective and stops taking their blame, their shame, their pain, and starts turning that wisdom into stories, what you realize is this: that you don't just change one person's life, you can change the narrative of an entire generation. And that ripple causes other ripples, and those ripples don't necessarily stop. So I want to bring you back to the beginning, to where it all started. Not to the stabbing, not to the blade, not to the blood, the sidewalk soaked with my blood and my pain, but I want to bring you back to the question I ask you. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was never meant to define you, but to design you? Let's say you're in a mess. Maybe you're in it right now. Maybe you've been running away from it for years. Maybe you've buried it so deep that you actually forgot it was even there. When you are ready, with guidance, support, I want to encourage you to go back to it. Not to relive it, not to be defined by it, but go back to it, because in that mess is a message, and that message has your name on it. I believe we can all become alchemists, transforming life's rockiest moments into golden opportunities. Perspective is no longer about, why did this happen to me? The perspective is, what are you going to do with what it made you? And how can you create a legacy that can outlast you and make the world a better place? Because in my day-to-days, I'm constantly reminded that the only constant in life is change. All the pain we face in our childhoods cannot be erased. We evolve, we grow, we mutate, but we never forget the scars inflicted that made us this way. Our deepest wounds carve out the perspective we gain. It literally wires the neurons in our brains. In this life, perspective is everything. It's the lens, the language, the logic of how we see the world and how the world sees us. Isn't it wild how two people can look at the same thing yet walk away with different meanings? Or how two people can experience the same trauma and walk away with opposite feelings? One sees pain, the other purpose. Both of their truths are truth, just a biased version. Perspective itself is subjective. It's limited to the perception we hold, but guides the direction we go. Perspective, it builds bridges and burns them behind the window pane of closed curtains. It took me a long time to understand this lesson. I mean, I've been burned too many times by the people I've loved that my heart became ashes, but who knew these ashes were magic, full of fertility and hope? Sometimes we need to burn it all down so we can grow. Perspective, it births compassion and kills it too. A kaleidoscope of experiences turned to truth. It's the lens, the language, the logic of how we see the world and how the world sees us. Example, a president looks at another country and sees a problem to fix, or a profit to gain, or a threat to contain, all depending on the shade of glass pressed against the power. When it comes to some political leaders, one sees war, the other defense. One sees injustice, the other says it's just how it is. And somewhere else, a boy learns early that love comes with bruises, no accountability and endless excuses. So when he grows up, he speaks in scars and silence, not because he's cruel, but because his view of love was bloodstained from the beginning. Masking love with violence, the cycle of trauma continues dividing. We act from what we see, and what we see is shaped by what we survived. Perspective. It's not just a view, it's a vessel. It carries history, hurt, hope, and sometimes hate. Perspective is powerful. It's the difference between a hand extended and a fist raised, between let's talk and you're wrong, between peace and pieces. So I ask, if all we see is through the glass we've been given, then who's cleaning the lenses? Who's brave enough to question their clarity? Who's willing to tilt their head, shift their gaze, and say, maybe it's not just the world that's broken. Maybe it's also the lens that I'm looking through. Because a mind that never questions its sight is a danger day and night. Perspective. It can free nations or feed egos. It can heal a child or justify a war. It can make us prophets or prisoners. So guard your gaze. Tend your truth. Be humble enough to know that sometimes you might just be looking at it wrong. Perspective. It's the most broken, brilliant, blinding, blessed, biased thing we will ever hold. Anyways, what do I know? This is just my perspective.